All right, Wednesday edition, section 1904. You're in. Thanks for being with us. We have a guest coming up, Steve Sands, Golf Channel, NBC Sports, because I can't get enough. Rory McIlroy. And Steve Sands is one of the great guests of all time, so we'll chat it up with Sandsy in our next segment. He was at Augusta National over the weekend. We'll talk to him about the accomplishment of winning a career Grand Slam, of the emotional roller coaster that all the Rory fans and even the Rory haters went through on Sunday because that was such a unique golf tournament. So Steve Sands will be here. Padres are playing an afternoon game. Padres lost on Tuesday night. By the time any of you listen to this, the Padres will probably already be playing. Yeah. So I'm not sure how much dissection we're going to give you on a 2-1 loss, the first loss of 2025 at Petco Park. But 2-1 final score, Cubs win. The rubber game coming up from Petco Park this afternoon. John, you're going to this game? What's your deal?
I would love to go to this game, but for a couple of reasons I can't. One, there is a Section 1904 business to attend to that is going to be easier for me to do here than at a ballpark. And two, my wife is under the weather, and this being an afternoon game, I don't think I can really stick her with go to the school, pick up the kid, come home, parent the kid. Not to mention the fact that she's so tired of not working that she's working through her illness today. So it would also be her working through her illness and trying to parent ill. So I think I'm going to skip this one and try and go to a game when the Padres get back into town. Because I think this is the last home game for like a week or so, right?
That is correct. This is the third game, Cubs and Padres. By the way, it's Nick Pivetta Day. Yeah. Is that a thing yet? Nick Pivetta Day? I just noticed the other day that he is, because I was down the rabbit hole on Fernando Tatis Jr. for yesterday's section 1904. Yeah. So while I was down the rabbit hole, I was just comparing everybody's wins above replacement at baseballreference.com, and I noticed that Pivetta had the second highest WAR as of yesterday. Yes, I know that that's probably premature to invest some time in, but the point is he's been good, and I think you want him at Petco Park, right? If early trends seem to suggest anything at all, which they probably don't. But him, day game, Petco Park. So yeah, a hilarious game. Not one that I don't want to spend a ton of time. I think one of the things that we want to avoid here is just doing what a lot of other places are doing respectfully, which is talking about, box score radio, as I've often referred to it. I mean, I did think that there was something that was hilarious that happened in this game last night. Manny Machado's home run, which was just hilarious when Manny is given how many outs? The Cubs drop a ball down the right field line, then they drop a pop-up behind the plate. And I just, I'm thinking what everybody's thinking. You give Manny Machado this many opportunities, he's going to make you pay, man. He is going to make you pay. And sure enough, he did. I didn't get to blue sky quick enough to make my prediction. So you'll have to trust me that I was thinking it. I didn't give anybody a receipt, but it seems so obvious that if you give Manny Machado a couple of extra swings of the bat, he's probably going to make you pay more times than not. And last night he certainly did that. That was hilarious, wasn't it?
I actually missed that at bat and had to catch up on it. So wait, I saw the home run. You're telling me they dropped 2 foul balls in the course of this at bat?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, the baseball...
Tucker dropped one, and then the third baseman, Workman, dropped one. There was a pop-up right behind the plate. I guess the catcher might have lost it. And it's just like, how many chances are you going to give this guy in a scoreless game? And I guess Agler called it on radio. Good for Jesse. That's one of those that you can always dangle out there, and if you're wrong, nobody gives a shit. But, that he put it out there always makes you look great. And then Machado twice. I mean, it was 2 strikes, 2 outs. It was 2 outs too. Tatis flew out. Araj struck out for only the second time all year, by the way. And and there's a drop, and you're just sort of like, oh, okay, Tucker loses it, I guess, in the lights. I don't know. And then the third baseman just totally boxes it behind the plate. You're like, what is this? Like, and you're starting to think, is this the way this is going to go? Like, they're just going to catch all these breaks. Like, this is going to be a theme for the Padres, isn't it? When Manny homers and it's a 1-0 lead, and you're like, oh yeah, hilarious moment. Yeah. Ultimately, though, they couldn't make it home.
Was that? I don't think it was last night. I think it was the night before. There was basically a pop-up to short left that like I think the shortstop, the left fielder, and maybe the center fielder all ran for. And it was Hap's ball. Like Hap was the one running in on it. They're all running sideways or back on it. And Hap just never calls the ball, so it ends up dropping in the middle of all three. And like Cubs look like they're a mess, man. Like that doesn't look like a Craig Counsell team. They look like they're a little bit of a mess. But hey, they beat the Padres. The bullpen still looked great. Randy Vasquez is so confusing to me. He should not be having this much success as a pitcher because he just doesn't seem to have great stuff. But he keeps getting guys out. I keep looking at his StatCast stuff and seeing that like his curveball's got 5 to 6 more inches of drop on it than it had last year. That's the only thing I can figure. Like he throws that a lot. It's the only thing I can figure that's working for him. That wasn't working for him last year, but another, I think maybe scoreless outing for Randy Vasquez. He's pitching really well, but yeah, you're not going to win every game, despite how the season starts. You're not going to win every game. I saw an amazing stat from I think Kevin AC this morning, where he said if the Padres went 500 for the rest of the season, I think they would have 89 wins. Maybe it was 86 wins, but they would be well above 500 for the season if they started going 500 now. And then he said, 90 wins is probably going to be what it takes to get a wild card spot. So it doesn't guarantee anything, but it shows you how much of a foundation they've built up early in the season that they can try and build on for the rest of the year.
Yeah, the only thing I would say about Vasquez is, if you're going to start him in the bottom or the top of the 6th inning there, and 5 pitches in, I don't know. I mean, I wonder if you can go back and you can think about the decision to let Randy Vasquez start that inning after giving up a couple of singles. I'm not sure, but again, I don't want to be nitpicky this early on in the season. It's just something that occurred to me in real time. That after a couple of singles, I understand you don't want to let the game get away from you there, but if you were willing to take him out after 5 pitches thrown in the 6th, maybe there's matchups there. I mean, it was Swanson and Horner, so probably a more matchup based decision. And there's a couple other things. Yuki Matsui not having his earpiece was kind of weird.
Wait, he didn't have an earpiece?
He did not have the, and it caused a little bit of a delay. I have no idea, if that had anything to do with what happened in the 10th inning. It gives up a triple, but he started the inning and Don and Mutter like, what's going on here? Why is Matsui pointing to the Padres dugout? And they determined he didn't have the earpiece in.
PitchCom or whatever.
PitchCom, yeah. So then, there's this like little delay. Somebody's got to run it out there and he's got to get, it fitted into the helmet. These guys are all creatures of habit to a certain extent. And then the first batter he faces, it's a triple. So
bam.
I don't know.
I thought he threw a good pitch too. The guy just hit it into a gap. It happens.
Yeah. There's I think it was an error. Let's see. Was it officially charged? I just want to see. Was it officially charged to?
Because it should have been a double.
No, to Estrada. Let's see. Tucker safe at second, throwing pitcher by Estrada. Yeah, I figured that was going to be a throwing error charge to Estrada, but man, I mean, I think a shortstop's probably got to at least keep that on the infield. But anyway, I'm doing all the things I said we weren't going to do.
I know. Let's, as you said, most people who are listening to this, the Padres are either playing right now, the next game, or they've already completed this game. So we don't need to break down the Tuesday night affair. We can get into other things, but
so I have to get into to other things today too. I'm locked in on Champions League this afternoon. Today is a home office day for me. I got to be watching some Charlotte FC this afternoon since I'll be on the call with Adrian Garcia Marquez coming up this weekend. So I got to do that. I have to go buy pants, John, for an upcoming trip that I have. I have terrible news when it comes to fashion, by the way.
What's that?
I went to a clothing store in the Otay Mesa Mall recently, a place that I normally find clothing that I enjoy wearing. It's called Cotton On.
Okay.
Not familiar with it?
No.
And it would appear that the styles have shifted.
Oh, no.
To a much baggier style pant. And I'm just not going to go down that road.
Is this the thing you were teasing last week, where you were saying you said something like I have a weird relationship with jeans right now? Does this have to do with your weird relationship with jeans? You said it was almost
Kind
not.
of.
Yeah,
I think that was before I went to Cotton On, but everything in that place is like
so
super
baggy.
baggy, and I'm just not gonna be that guy. Yeah, I'm not. I think it's unclear whether people over the age of 50 should be wearing jeans anymore. This is a conversation that I have with myself,
That's
because when
interesting.
I was younger than 50, I always laughed at people who were over 50 who wore jeans. But now that I'm over 50, I'm starting to rethink that and think maybe I'm the exception, but I'm definitely not going to wear these baggy pants. I'm sorry. I've realized that fashion after all these years is just a ridiculous way to make you spend more money.
Speaking of spending money and maybe being stubborn, I picked up golf a couple years ago, and I play semi regularly. And during the warm summer, spring months, you wear shorts. I love wearing shorts while playing golf. Shorts and a polo shirt. You're comfortable all day. But sometimes I play in the winter or the fall. Gets a little chilly. You can't wear shorts. And so I didn't want to wear like my nice khakis, like that I keep for like weddings and important business events and whatever. So I got fed like an Instagram ad for like, oh, these are khakis specifically built for golf. I was like, hell yeah. So I bought these khakis, and they have no pleats in them. And they're essentially like joggers that look like khakis.
Yoggers.
Joggers. And I played in them a couple times before my friends realized that they made me look like Jim Harbaugh, because Jim Harbaugh has these
Right.
the stupid khakis that he wears all the time. And then it's gotten to the point now where when I play in them, my friends will literally call me Jim or Harbaugh the entire time to try and get my head. And a lot of times it works.
Harbs. Yeah, so I'm going to give Las Americas a shot there. The outlet mall is down by the border, which is pretty close to me. And hopefully they will have some normal looking
Less
pants
baggy.
that I can pack up for a trip here shortly. So yeah,
Yeah.
I was really like distressed about it. I was like, dude, I am not gonna start wearing these fucking pants. I'm sorry. Like I'm already having a midlife crisis about wearing jeans, period. I'm definitely not wearing those baggy pants. Like that is not for me. And they had no other options in this place. So I'm really hoping this isn't the 2025 trend, having to go out there and not that I'm like a skinny jean. I'm more like a slim pant kind of fella. Like I'm a little tapered around the ankle, but it is distressing that all I noticed in the store that normally has come through for me time and time again are
Cotton.
these ridiculous looking baggy jeans. So I'm hoping that's not going to be the case across the board.
Cotton off.
Yeah, there you go.
Right before I moved to Carlsbad, when I knew I was going to, but I hadn't done it yet, I got into a conversation with our buddies H.J. Preller and Corey Stewart, who I think are subscribers and in the section, about joggers and specifically the Viore brand of jogger, which is getting very popular and is from, I think, Encinitas. So they're kind of local business that's going national. And HJ told me that Viore was the North County uniform. He's like,
Mhm.
everyone wears Viore here all the time. And he's right. I almost never wear jeans. I usually don't wear khakis unless, again, I'm going to play golf. I am in like joggers or like jogger shorts most days. They're incredibly comfortable. And it's funny because like I'll go to Florida, Texas, something like that. And I look around and I'm like, oh, wait, everyone here is wearing jeans or like at least khakis. Like no one's wearing joggers. It's weird. It's become a very North County coastal thing that everyone wears joggers. Then I go outside of my bubble and I'm like, oh, right. It's just where I live.
Yeah, and well, I mean, even compounding what it is that you're talking about there is I'm going to Spain, and the tourists, not always welcome. Not always welcome. I think it's a little bit overblown.
Yeah.
I've been there since people have talked about the pushback against tourism in Spain, and I haven't had any issues. Don't anticipate having any issues. But Spain is very much a very style centric type. Not that you have to be a model, but it's very style centric in terms of what it is that is considered acceptable and unacceptable when you're out in public. Like yoga pants aren't, you don't do that sort of stuff out in public.
Yeah.
So I do want to pick up the pace just a little bit. But anyhow, this is where are you on cargo shorts? I feel like this is another weird North County thing that like where I live, I see plenty of people wearing, maybe not full blown cargo shorts, but people are still wearing maybe a more modern looking cargo pant or cargo short. But I don't understand how the hatred towards those either.
I admit that a decent looking modern cargo short exists. It's not for me, and I rarely ever see it up here. So
okay, all right, yeah. Anyway, I got to watch Champions League today. Arsenal's up again. This is something that by the time people listen to this, who knows? Arsenal is taking a 3-0 lead into the Santiago Bernabeu in Madrid, and they will be closing the roof. So they're going to keep all the noise in. It's a European night. Real Madrid is all in on Champions League, which, as a Barcelona fan who had to sweat a little bit yesterday afternoon against Dortmund, I'm not quite clear what it is that I'm rooting for, other than an exhausting maybe 120 minutes for Real Madrid, maybe, since I'm going to go to the Clásico in a couple of weeks and watch Barcelona and Real Madrid, which could decide the La Liga title. But it will not surprise me at all if there's a little bit of magic from the self-proclaimed and European champs, Real Madrid, but should be a banger coming up later on today. So pretty excited about that. All right, let's do this. When we come back, Steve Sands Golf Channel, we'll talk about the Masters. We'll talk about Rory McIlroy. One of the things about Sands is oftentimes he is right next to these golfers when they come off the golf course. And when John and I were talking about the Masters the other day, I think the thing that we said that was so impressive wasn't the golf shots, because, they really weren't. But it was Rory's ability to just keep all of his emotions contained until he didn't have to any longer. And Sands is always right there. So I wonder how much of this he picks up on when he's covering a golf event for NBC Sports or for the Golf Channel. Steve Sands will join us next. All right. Well, I don't know, wherever I'm going to be in life, whether it's 1090, 1360, 760, Section 1904, a podcast, I don't care. Every time there's a major championship in golf, I need to talk to Steve Sands of NBC Sports, Golf Channel. I just think about him during these final rounds. He's kind enough to not have changed his number on me so that he was able to text back and forth a little bit while we were both watching Rory McIlroy win the Masters Championship this past week. Sandsy, it's a pleasure. As always, thank you for doing this.
I thought long and hard, Darren, about losing your number and changing mine, but I've known you too long and I like you too much.
Well, we appreciate it. Like I said, I don't care what the format is. I feel like we always have to have these conversations. And the good thing is here, you can be as vulgar as you normally are when we go to Rockies on this platform here. This isn't radio where you're going to get us in trouble with the FCC. So you can be your normal vulgar self.
Well, the problem with Rockies for someone like you is that you're a kale, quinoa, no French fries, no cheese. Excuse me, do you have a vegan burger, please? Can I get a black bean burger? Could you be more SoCal and not in less East Coast? It's impossible. The phrase California cool? Yep. You're California soft, Darren, but I still love you.
Well, you should have seen it. We handled the earthquake the other day like a champ. I'd love to see you in those kind of situations. But
I like when the ground beneath us is stable. That's nice.
Hey, I was locked in on Sunday with Rory, and you and I have had enough conversations over the last 10 plus years that, I'm a big Rory McIlroy fan. If this had been Scheffler, if this had been somebody else, I would have tuned in, but I wouldn't have been as locked in on it. And I was so happy for Rory McIlroy winning not just the Grand Slam, but also the Masters Championship. I think the one thing, Steve, that I may have missed, and your colleagues at Golf Channel did a great job live from the Masters afterwards, talking about how good the tournament was, whether it was Rory McIlroy or anybody else. I was so locked in on the player that I was sort of surprised when I saw your colleagues saying that this was like a top 5 Masters of all time. Were you realizing that in real time, or were you just locked in on the player?
No, I was realizing it at the time and realizing it all week, because each and every week, Darren, since 2015 actually, at the Masters, Rory was trying to win the career Grand Slam. It's the single most difficult thing to achieve in all of sports. More women and more men have won the career Grand Slam in tennis than men have won the career Grand Slam in golf. And in women, for For the LPGA, it's a little murky because they've changed back and forth what the majors are. In the modern era, there are 5 majors now, so it's kind of hard. But only 5 men have ever completed the career Grand Slam. So throughout the week, when McIlroy put himself in contention and in position, well, you just started building and building and building towards that crescendo, which ended up being Sunday. And for sure, it was building towards being a top 5 Masters only because of the career achievement that Rory was trying to accomplish, and he got it done. So I think for sure it was right up there with 75 in Jack, 86 in Jack, 97 with Tiger, 2019 with Tiger. Go back to 35, Gene Sarazen, 1935, 90 years ago, won the career Grand Slam at the Masters. He's the only one who's ever done that now other than Rory. So I think he was a top 5 Masters for sure.
Jack said something interesting, talking about you guys and all the great work that you do on Golf Channel. He said afterwards, he's like, I don't know if Rory was really totally consumed by winning the career Grand Slam as much as he was winning the Masters. And I think you understand the question that I'm asking. I hope it makes sense because you needed to win the Masters to win the career Grand Slam, right? Like you can't have one without the other under these circumstances that Rory was in, but that he was so happy to win the Masters first, just because it's the tournament he always dreamt of winning. And winning the career Grand Slam, as amazing of an achievement as it is that you just laid out there, it wasn't so much that it was secondary. It maybe, it wasn't what he thought he set out to do in life. He wanted to win the Masters first, and that he did it also while winning a career Grand Slam was sort of like the second part of how amazing this moment was.
Yeah, I was watching live from at night, and I heard Jack say that, and I love Jack. I don't respectfully disagree with Jack. I just think that 2 things can be true at once. Obviously, he wants to win the Masters because he's a professional golfer and he's dreamed of it his whole life. But what comes with that in this point of his career and his life is a career Grand Slam. And I think that was a heavy, heavy burden, a massive, massive weight. So to me, both things can be true at once. I don't disagree with Jack, but I do think, yes, the weight of the Masters was on Rory's mind, Darren, but I also think the weight of the career Grand Slam was there as well. And I think it's a combination of the two. They're not mutually exclusive, not in this particular instance.
Yeah, that's how unique that was. Steve, you have been there on the 18th green interviewing these guys when they come off more than anybody that I know. And sometimes it is in victory and sometimes it's in defeat. And I think the thing that really stood out is when Rory sinks the winning putt on the first playoff hole, he collapses to the ground, right? He completely loses control. And, it felt very real. It felt very authentic. And, he's emotional and he's crying and he's sobbing and it's uncontrollable. And the thing that I marvel at, whether it's a golfer or whether it's any other professional athlete, even all these years later in this business, is that they can somehow function with that type of energy coursing through their veins. And it made me think of you and how often you're standing right there. Like, can you feel the energy that these guys are playing with, the emotions that these guys are keeping bottled up, whether they're winning or whether they're losing? Because, we see what happens when he no longer has to control his emotions. He loses control of his emotions. How much can you sense that when you're standing there with a microphone and you're talking to these guys?
Not only can you hear it when you talk to the guys, I think you can see it. I will never forget, Darren, 2011, the year that Rory was the 54-hole leader by 4 and shot 80 and ended up losing the Masters. That was 14 years ago. Charles Schwartzel won. Now, nobody particularly cared at the time about Charles Schwartzel. He birdied 4 holes in a row to close out the Masters. First time anyone's ever done that in the history of the Masters. And he wins the Masters. But what I take away from that week was looking at Rory. Not just hearing him, but looking at Rory and the weight of that moment. And then at the end, the runner-up that week was Jason Day, who ended up being a major champion and a big-time star in golf, and he still is. Jason Day walked off the course, Darren, on Sunday at the Masters, looking like he was just in a 12-round fight with Mike Tyson. He looked beaten up. He was staggering up the hill. He was exhausted mentally and physically, and it was just amazing to see it. So for sure, we can sense that when we're down on the ground. We can sense it up in the booth. We see what these guys are going through, and we can also hear what they're going through. And I'm telling you, it's a heavy burden to be a favorite in sports. It's a heavy burden. It's a privilege, but it's a heavy burden. And there is a massive weight lifted off of Rory McIlroy's shoulders and his back now that he accomplished what he did last Sunday by winning the Masters, as Jack said, and winning the career Grand Slam.
Isn't it amazing, though, how their ability to suppress all of that and still function? You know, we all know that he's a great golfer and that you have to have, you know, the physical abilities, mental abilities, whether he had won this one or not, right? Like, we know that he had done things that are going to put him in really rarefied air in sports, not just in golf. But that ability to function, to walk, to, you know, to communicate, to breathe. I think that's, you know, that's the separation, right? From these guys, from everybody else, from the rest of the common people who just watch it each and every day.
Whether you and I are at Rockies in PB and we're having a beer and a burger, or we're talking on your show, my favorite thing in sports truly is watching the best people at what they do on the planet handle the pressure coming down the stretch, no matter what the event is. I remember watching Saturday night of the Final Four when Houston beat Duke. That kid making those free throws, you know, that kid is not a great free throw shooter. And he stepped up for Houston in a big, big pressurized spot and drilled those free throws. And that just amazes me when athletes of any level, but at the highest level, and I'm considering, you know, Division I college basketball, the Final Four, the highest level in that sport in particular. But just name all the players in all the sports we've seen. Vinatieri making a kick. McIlroy needing to hit a great wedge in the playoff after hitting a terrible one in regulation. The kid at Houston making the free throws. Whatever the situation is in sports, when professionals and high level players, you know, like Will Howard at Ohio State or whoever, needing to come up big in pressurized moments, and they do, I'm always amazed at how they handle it in the moment. And by the way, same thing on the other side. When it's not handled well and they do, you know, quote unquote, choke underneath the pressure or can't handle the weight of the moment, I'm fascinated by that as well. But when athletes step up in big moments and get it done, I just think it's the coolest thing in the world. I'm amazed at how they handle the pressurized moments.
And this round, right, I gave you a little bit of everything, even from the opening double bogey, which admittedly I didn't see. And I did like that Rory said afterwards, you know, listen, there's always a bit of trauma out here on these golf courses, so better to get it out of the way early. But the double on 13, we've seen other golfers who don't recover from that. The double bogey on 13 and then the bogey on 14. You know, and like they just don't recover from that. I don't know if there's a way for you to rank the things in this one round that he overcame, whether it's the double to start or the double at 13 or the missed putt on 18, only to get right back up there on that first playoff hole. Is there a way for you to rank the things that he mentally and physically overcame on that final round?
His perseverance and resilience and his guts were on display. So were his vulnerabilities. So were his weaknesses. On display in the absolute height of the moment. The double bogey at 1, you know, he missed the fairway by a yard covering that bunker on the right-hand side on the tee. Wasn't a bad tee shot. It just happened to go in the bunker. He makes a double bogey there, loses his lead. He went from 2 up to even on the second tee and then 1 back on the third tee. And when he went to the 5th tee, he was 3 ahead. I mean, it was an up and down roller coaster ride the entire time. And then he hits a terrible shot at 11, gets lucky. The 13 was a brutal shot. That's a shot you and I would hit, a wedge into the water. That's a horrific shot after playing the hole the correct way and laying up. And then on 15, Darren, the second shot at 15 around the tree is as good a golf shot as you've ever seen in your life. But he doesn't make the eagle putt to bury everybody. He misses the eagle putt and makes the birdie, taps in, still has the lead. Hits the best wedge you've ever seen in your life on 17, 2-footer, takes the 1-shot lead, has the exact same club on the 18th hole after hitting a great drive and hits it into the bunker and misses the 5.5-footer, which I don't think anybody in the world thought he was going to make. And then they go to a playoff, and then he hits the exact same drive beautifully and the exact same yardage and club with his wedge 15 minutes earlier that he skanked into the bunker and enabled him to miss an opportunity to win a regulation. And he hits a perfect wedge to 2 feet, 3 feet, whatever it was, makes the putt, and he wins the Masters. So it was all on display for him. Horrific golf, but greatness, more so than anything at times, and he was able to prevail. But, it was an exhausting day if you're a McIlroy fan. It was so much fun to watch, nerve-wracking to watch. It's amazing. I was talking to Scott Van Pelt about this the other day. He's a buddy of mine, and you know him, and everybody on your audience, I'm sure, knows him. Scott and I were saying it's weird. We sit up there in front of millions of people and do these TV shows, never get nervous, never think anything of it, because it's what we do. It's what you do. You have your audience, you do your show, you're great at it, Darren, and you're comfortable in your own element. Well, I don't know about you, but I was a mess watching Rory trying to finish this thing. It was nerve-wracking, right?
Yeah.
Why is it someone else can make you nervous and not your own self? It's amazing how he was able to recover from some of that shot at 13. If you're mentally weak, you're done after that.
Done. Not just done for the day. You might be done in your career. Like that might be a wrap for some players.
Never going to win again. I totally agree with you. Never going to do anything ever again in major championship golf. And he steps up 2 holes later and hits a shot at 15 that, like, literally from the heavens. That shot was so good, you can't believe it. The shot at 17 was so good, you can't believe it. The shot in the playoff at 18 was so good, you can't believe it. Just as much as the shot at 18 in regulation was so bad, you couldn't believe it. And the shot at, 13 was so bad, you couldn't believe it. The shot at 11 was so bad, you couldn't believe it. It's like, what is going on here? And it was a wild, wild ride, man.
That putt on the 72nd hole, about 5.5 feet, you said, most people, like, I think I may have texted, you were amongst a group of people that I was texting, like a buddy of mine's a huge Rory fan, and we were just going through it, on Sunday. And we're like, anything is going to happen here on the 72nd hole. But that putt, we talked a little bit about how quickly Rory moves, right? Like he doesn't let his mind settle in to think about the possibilities here of missing it. And he really went quickly on that putt, the one that he missed that sent it to the playoff. If nobody's around, and right, like you have to sort of picture what it looked like on television. And I'm sure you noticed this as a TV guy. Like they literally put putt to win the career Grand Slam up on the screen, which is interesting. I don't know if the Masters folks will love that, but whatever. And like if nobody's around and it's just Rory McIlroy and he's got 1,000 golf balls, I'm guessing he makes what, like 995 out of those putts. I mean, and it's just the moment there that causes him to push that thing left, isn't it?
100%. That's the beautiful thing about sports. Like I said before, how do the guys handle the pressure? How do they handle the heat when it is absolutely turned up the most? And I'm on this text chain with a bunch of guys. As he's walking up 18, it's a make or miss, make or miss. And he's going to make or miss after the bunker shot. Nobody thought he was going to make it. Like nobody, like literally nobody thought he was going to make it. Now, I thought he was going to make the one in the playoff because I thought, 3 feet 9 inches is not a gimme, but I thought he was going to make that one because he missed the one earlier. And I just thought it was just a better look for him, better side of the hole for him. But in regulation, Darren, I didn't think he was going to make it. And I think most people in America who are watching didn't think he was going to make it, which is incredible if you consider he's the best player of his generation. He's now won 5 majors. He's only the second man in 59 years to win the career Grand Slam. I mean, he's put himself in a category that is beyond belief greatness, and yet there's all this doubt in his fans and people who have watched him for years because he just doesn't make it easy on himself sometimes. He used to. When he was winning those 4 majors, he would roll over people. Man, after he gave up the Masters in 2011 with a 4-shot lead, shooting 80 on Sunday, the PGA Championship that year, Darren, was in August. Now it's played in May, but it used to be played in August. So the next major, after having your heart ripped out, not playing well, he goes and wins by 8 at the U.S. Open at Congressional in 2011. So there's been outrageous greatness from Rory, and there's been some heartbreak as well. And Sunday was a little bit of both.
I just have one quick thing to ask about, and that is his caddy, the relationship with his caddy, Harry Diamond, because, there's been a lot of people like, Rory, listen, we get it. You're his buddy, and, you guys were the best men at each other's wedding, but, you need a better caddy. And I don't even know how much he's going to listen to a caddy, right? Because there were these moments where Harry's like, no, you should hit this club. And he's like, F it, I'm going to hit this club instead. But maybe what he really needed in that final round wasn't, somebody who he didn't have a personal connection with. I don't know. You can speak to it better than I can. That relationship with him and his caddy, whereas a lot of people have said it might have hurt him in his career. Maybe that's why he kept him around, because it felt like to me after the 72nd hole, what he needed wasn't a caddy to yell at him. He kind of needed a buddy to like understand how to deal with the situation.
Imagine trying to tell someone else who's literally either the best or second best player, person doing what he does for a living on the planet, telling him what he should do and what's best for him. I think that's outrageous. I've never been a fan of that. If he wants to have Harry Diamond on his bag, he can have Harry Diamond on his bag. At the end of the day, it's up to him. He's hitting the shots. He's making the decisions. The caddy is not making the decisions, and he is not hitting the shots. And Harry makes him comfortable. He's a very, very, very close friend. As you said, they were best men in each other's weddings. And they've known each other since they were little kids back at home at the Hollywood Golf Club in Northern Ireland. And Harry has been a big brother to Rory, who's an only child, his entire life. So when he made that switch because he wanted to kind of close ranks. He was becoming a massive global star, and he wanted people around him who he loved and trusted. Who's going to argue with that? Harry Diamond did not miss that putt at 16 at Pinehurst last year, Darren. Mm-hmm. Harry Diamond did not hit that wedge into the water at 13. He also didn't hit that wedge at 17 and in the playoff. So Harry is an amazing guy, and he's very, very close with Rory, and he helps Rory because those guys are sports psychologists as much as they are caddies. It's like a swing instructor. Butch Harmon for years has told me it's more so about how you are with the athlete as opposed to what you are teaching them particularly. They're great at what they do already. You're just there to hone their talents, not completely revitalize them. And that's what Harry's been doing for Rory, and I think they're going to go on a heck of a run here for the next 5 or 10 years.
All right, from your lips to the golf gods here. Steve, you are a gentleman. Great stuff, as always. Tremendous coverage. Thank you for doing this. You're the absolute best in the business, and we thank you.
My pleasure, Dan. Anytime, bud. Glad you're doing well.
All right, John. He's the best, isn't he? I mean, he's one of the best.
He's okay. He's gave us so much there, and he was awesome. Personally, selfishly, I realized that me taking the role of your co-host means that I might occasionally get invited to burgers at Rocky's with Sands, and I'm very excited for that because you wound him up. You're like, hey, let loose with your vile mouth. Let fly all the expletives, and I think he held it in. We almost got like TV Steve Sands.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to see what he's like in other settings. But he's wildly entertaining, and just had really good like perspective on things, right? Like you were talking about Rory's emotions. He compared it to college basketball, right? He put winning the Grand Slam in context with winning like a tennis Grand Slam or other sports accomplishments to show just how hard it was. The fact that he came with those receipts, I think while he was driving around town and not sitting in front of a computer referencing it, was even more amazing. He's fantastic. I can't wait until the next time we have him on.
He's just a tremendous guest. And I know this is the sort of thing that you say, and it sounds like it's just a hollow expression, but he is such a good dude to hang out with. The fact that he wants to come to town. I remember the first time that we all agreed to go to dinner. I'm like, well, this guy, he always makes himself available to the radio show. Yeah. He always answers my silly texts. I had a friend that went to the Ryder Cup a bunch of years ago, and I was like, hey, Steve, I have friends that are there because it was in Italy. I was like, do you mind? Like, could I connect you? And he's like, yeah, of course. He's like, I'm not some hoity-toity TV person. Like, just, yeah, give Warren my number. And, I connected those guys, and he took the time to like meet with them and say hello to them, while he's busy broadcasting from the Ryder Cup. He's just like a dude's dude. He loves sports.
Yeah.
We can talk about obvious. College hoops with him. We could talk about, one of the things I didn't mention because I didn't want to push it time-wise, he's a huge hockey fan. And he's a huge Washington Capitals, right? Yeah, Washington Capitals fan.
Mm-hmm.
And, Alex Ovechkin just became the all-time leading scorer in NHL history. And I was going to ask about that because I don't know anything about hockey. I don't think you know anything about hockey.
No.
But he would be able to tell us a lot about the great eight, as he's often referred to. So just he can do it all, man. That's a guy who gets it. And I always like the guys that cover some of these niche sports that they always know how to make it relatable for people who aren't golf fans by comparing it to college hoops or whatever, or NBA basketball. Speaking of Magic over the Hawks, Hawks can't lose enough for me, so I'm okay there. And Warriors over the Grizz last night. Ja Morant had to leave this game with some sort of injury type situation. Didn't look good. Right ankle, I believe it was, on a jump shot.
Yeah.
Any surprises for you through the first play-in games that we watched on Tuesday?
No surprises, except, which maybe we'll just park here for a minute, how the game ended. I mean, the end of the game was so exciting. Memphis basically clawed their way back in. Then they lose Morant. Desmond Bane's going crazy. Zach Edey's getting offensive rebounds. They just scratched and clawed until they got back into the game. And then, the Warriors take a lead and Steph hits this like super clutch three. And then there's like some bad reffing going on, ghost calls and what have you. And then it's like, okay, Memphis is going to get the ball. 3 seconds left or 4 seconds left, down 3. They're at half court. This is what you watch for. This is what you play for. They had a chance to pass the ball in, take a shot. You make a 3, you go to overtime. You got the momentum. Maybe you can steal a win. And instead, the team that fired their head coach 2 weeks ago just forgot to inbound the ball. Hey, first of all, he drew up the worst inbound play I've ever seen. Every single one of his guys basically walked up to a defender and hugged them. I don't know what the hell they were doing. And obviously the inbounder had no idea where to go with the ball. And they just held onto the ball I saw a bunch of people like literally counted out for like almost 7 seconds before they finally like called it. They're like, no, 5-second violation. That's a turnover. Warriors get the ball back. Game over. Like, to do all of that, claw all the way back, even with your superstar, in the locker room because he twisted his ankle or whatever, to do all of that and then just not even take a shot.
Brutal.
Not even take a shot. It was amazing. I think whoever was on the call like immediately compared it to the national championship game last week.
I think it was Harlan on the call, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And Harlan and Reggie?
Reggie, yeah.
And Harlan did not. Harlan had like a weird good game, bad game. His like calls for big moments were great, but he also like kept missing stuff. He didn't understand that it was a 5-second violation at first. He was like, "What the hell's going on?" And Reggie was like 5 seconds. And then Harlan was like 5 seconds. They never even got the. And it was just, I saw a lot of tweets and posts on Blue Sky afterwards that were just like, well, good thing they didn't fire their head coach 2 weeks ago, only to literally give away the game on what you could easily categorize as a coaching mistake. It's just brutal, terrible way.
Yeah,
to
I mean, it's unsatisfying, like you said.
Really?
Again, as a neutral, you're tuning in, and I don't know that I'm 100% neutral in this because I don't think I would have wanted Memphis to win the game. I'm okay with Memphis staying and making it to the playoffs, but I'm definitely I want Golden State to get into the playoffs.
Same.
Right? Like that was
Same.
more of a priority for me. So, that Memphis can live to fight another day just based on where they were seeding wise.
Yeah.
And have to wait for whatever happens with Mavericks and Kings.
Hopefully neither team shows up.
Yeah. I mean, yikes.
I mean,
by the way, what happened with the Mavericks yesterday? You seemed hot and bothered by something.
Oh my God.
Their GM had an off the record press session or something.
It wasn't off the record, but so here's
couldn't
what
record it.
Here's what the Mavericks did. They decided that they were going to make Nico Harrison, who has not spoken to the media since right after trading Luka Doncic for stuff that's not worth half of what Luka Doncic is. And so they picked, I think it was 15 members of the media to sit around a table that was apparently covered in breakfast items because this happened at 7 a.m.
In Dallas, I'm going to guess that those are the inferior breakfast tacos.
I don't know. All I know was there was a report from my buddy Tim Cato, who used to cover the Mavericks for The Athletic and now covers them for DLLS, saying that there was a lot of breakfast food on the table and no one touched it. And then he made a joke about how everyone was afraid of why they got called there. Maybe the Mavericks were trying to poison some members of the media. They called 15 members of the media that they handpicked. 3 of them write for Mavericks.com, so those don't count. So 12 members of the media. And their choices were really weird. Like sometimes they would pick like a sports editor as for the local paper instead of like the beat writer who would get left out. It's just very weird. And they were just like, we're going to sit around here.
That sounds familiar. Where have I heard that
right.
strategy before?
And all of this felt very San Diego Chargers-esque. Like, we're going to pick the members of the media that we like, that we trust, that we want to reward. You're going to come in, you're going to have a closed door meeting, no phones allowed, no recorders allowed. You are allowed pen and paper, and that is it. And you get to ask questions of Nico Harrison. And Nico Harrison proceeds to shit on the fans, shit on Dirk Nowitzki, say, it's my job to do what's in the best interest of the Dallas Mavericks, whether Dirk Nowitzki or the fans like it or not. And says at one point that, it doesn't matter what Mark Cuban's opinion is. Like, Nico Harrison 3 years ago worked for fucking Nike, had never worked for an NBA team. He was just the Nike guy who connected to NBA players. And the only reason anyone knows his name is he's like the guy who brought Kobe into Nike and made Kobe into a marketing sensation, which anyone could have done because he's Kobe. And his whole reason for every decision appears to be, are you Kobe Bryant or are you not Kobe Bryant? And he looked at Luka Doncic and he was like, that's a fat white kid. That's not Kobe Bryant. I want him off my team. But he can't say that. So he dances around it and answers every question with, I'm doing what's in the best interest of the Dallas Mavericks. We believe that defense wins championships. And it's like, that you can't, that's not a good explanation. That's like not, they've yet to give a good explanation. And they basically did this like closed door meeting with media members so that Nico Harrison could lie to all their faces and insult the biggest star the team has ever had in Dirk Nowitzki, and insult the fan base, insult Mark Cuban. And like, it really seemed like all the reports that came out of this, all 12 people that went in there and wrote a thing about this, it seems like the Mavericks just tried to like nuke their fan base. We don't care about any of you. The owners have been there for less than a year. The GM and the head coach have been there for like 3 or 4 years, maybe. And no one else has been there any longer than that. And they're just shitting on everything that came before them, unwilling to admit that they made any sort of mistakes. Like, the Mavericks have had, everyone agrees it's the worst trade that ever happened and that they're having one of the worst seasons in the history of sports. And not in terms of like total losses, but just in terms of like the gut punch after gut punch after gut punch of like Luke is gone and now Kyrie's hurt and now Anthony Davis is hurt. And now you're watching this terrible team just limp into the playoffs. I don't even know if the Mavericks were 500 this year and they started the season great. And to just blow up decades and decades of work from the organization to try and build a fan base and appreciate the fans and the community and everything, and just be like, we don't give a shit about you because this guy from Nike says that Anthony Davis is actually better than Luka Doncic. And you know who agrees with him? Fucking nobody. It was startling. It was a startling story to read over and over again because they're just so out of fucking touch. And yeah, it felt like some stories that I've heard about people getting called to Chargers Park and getting to sit down with Dean Spanos or Bill Johnston or occasionally even AJ Smith. It felt like that.
Was that you? Did that happen to you? I got called in once. I got called in once. Jim Steig was, but he was just getting his marching orders from Dean.
Yeah.
And Jim even looked at me at his desk and he's like, I'm just doing what I'm told here. So you say whatever the fuck you want. He's like, I don't give a shit. I know I'm not going to change your mind, but Dean wanted me to bring you in here for a lecture, and I'm just doing what I'm told.
Yeah, I mean, the follow-up to that is I have gotten called into the principal's office at Chargers Park once or twice, once by phone, once in person. And I also, around that time, Jim Steig invited me out for beers. He didn't work for the Chargers anymore. He might have been retired at the time. And we had beers. And he was like, don't listen to a fucking word they say. Yeah. I was like, all right, thanks, Jim. He's like, I can tell you everyone who's in that building, I hired most of them. Don't listen to a fucking word they say.
It's always so lame too when the owner has to have one of his, not that Jim Steig was a henchman, but when he tries to have somebody beneath him on the food chain, on the pecking order there, try to this is the sort of nonsense that goes on with really weak leaders, right? This is a character trait for weak leaders. If you have something to say, like, you know how to get in touch with me, and I will say Peter Seiler never did that.
No.
Peter didn't love everything that was said, but Peter also knew he can go direct. He wouldn't ask some PR person to apologetically call me the next day because I gave Jurickson Profar a San Diego Loyal jersey. Anyway, but here's the thing. Back to the Mavs for a second. Number one, yes, they're 4 games under 500, John.
Ugh.
So it's not even like they're
right there.
It's one of the things about the expanded postseason.
I know.
You just sort of invite this stuff in. I don't know if it's great or not.
But you know what it did? You know what it did? The whole plan thing. It made tanking less of a thing because these teams are like, well, if we can get into the play-in and catch fire, we'll get 5 home games out of it or 3 home games out of it, and that's enough revenue to make it worth it. And so all these teams that are like not good enough to make the playoffs are like, I don't know, man. Maybe we can earn some. Maybe we can do something. Just believe. And so it used to be like half the league was tanking, and now it's like there's 4 teams that are tanking, and everyone else is like, I don't know.
I understand the expansion of the NCAA tournament to 68 because you are squeezing out a couple of teams, who maybe hit a rough patch at some point during the season. It's not like you're inviting in other bad teams. You're inviting in other teams that might actually have a chance, and we've seen it come out of the Dayton rounds.
Yeah.
This, I don't know. This just feels like you're inviting in a little bit of mediocrity because it's a television event.
It does feel that way.
That's what sports is. But back to your point about Dirk Nowitzki, because, as you're saying that, I'm like, well, I don't know if I'm a front office, like what do I need to listen to Dirk Nowitzki? I'm not sure that I do. I'm not saying that you have to be disrespectful for him, but I'm wondering what it is that Dirk Nowitzki has to offer that I really need to listen to. I don't want to have a contentious relationship with my star player. Right? Like I'm trying to think about this in Padre terms.
Oh wait, no, I have it in Padres terms.
But you don't want Trevor Hoffman, and you don't want to be at odds with Trevor, although technically he works for the team. But does AJ Preller need to listen to Trevor Hoffman? I'm not so sure that he does.
Dirk works for the team too. No, AJ Preller doesn't. But you don't shit on him publicly in front of the fan base, right? Like if the Padres traded Fernando Tatis Jr. and then, Trevor Hoffman gives an interview to us or someone else, Ben and Woods, and says, hey, man, they didn't ask me. I found out the same way you did, and I wouldn't have traded him. I think the kid is great. And then AJ Preller went out there and went I don't fucking care what Trevor Hoffman thinks. The fans would just light the building on fire and be like, well, you're going to care because Trevor is a guy who has a bigger voice than us, the fans, but he's saying the same thing as us because he cares about the franchise. Like Dirk Nowitzki cares about the franchise, and Nico Harrison and Patrick Dumont and this other guy they just made CEO who was with the Warriors before, and Miriam Adelson, they're just burning down everything that came before them.
I know, but sometimes you listen too much to people who, haven't dedicated their entire lives. Like they've dedicated their lives to the sport as players.
Oh, I agree.
But that often doesn't translate to coaching or player development or player acquisition or budgetary decisions that need to be, I'm not trying to. I'm mostly devil's advocating here.
There's a reason Michael Jordan was a terrible team owner.
Not everybody's Jerry West here.
Yes.
I don't know.
I
maybe
agree.
Maybe Dirk Nowitzki is Jerry West. I'm not sure. But I also think Dirk Nowitzki, if Dirk Nowitzki has an opinion about a player, he's probably not going to get fired, whereas the general manager will get fired for getting it wrong. Yeah. Which is just different. They will love Dirk Nowitzki forever unless he actually becomes the general manager and makes a bunch of I don't know.
Well, so my wife had an interesting take on this yesterday when this kind of quote came out. She didn't even care about the Dirk part. She was like, to say, I don't care what the fans think. She was like, if the fans don't buy tickets and the fans don't watch your games.
Yeah, that's always one you got to avoid.
You don't have a team.
You got to avoid saying it that bluntly. I mean, you have to say, listen, we respect the fans, but some of these decisions are decisions that we have to make that we feel like are in the best interest of the club. I don't know. Yeah. It's always a tricky thing.
It's a very tricky
honestly,
thing.
like what do fans really know?
But like,
I don't think they do.
Nico Harrison is.
Does media really know? I don't think the media does.
No, but here's the thing. Nico Harrison is coming out with this premise that he thinks Anthony Davis is better than Luka Doncic.
Right.
And he's like the only person on earth who believes that.
Right.
And to me, that should be disqualifying. Like if you think,
that's fair.
Yeah,
right,
and that's the main thing. And to sit there and be like, I don't care what anyone else thinks, I'm doing what's in the best interest of the Mavericks. No, you're not, because obviously your abilities to evaluate talent are wrong.
Well, we'll see. Maybe Anthony Davis, maybe the Mavs, led by Anthony Davis, go on a march through the postseason this year that nobody will ever forget.
Maybe Luka breaks down like Kawhi Leonard. He's never healthy again. Who knows?
It could happen. Well, Heat and Bulls, and followed by Mavericks and Kings tonight.
Both bad games.
Those are your NBA play-in games for this Wednesday afternoon. And if you're looking for something to distract you at 6:00, might I recommend the SDFC midweek show on San Diego Sports 760 and the iHeartRadio app, starting at 6 p.m. Adrian Garcia Marquez and myself. We will recap last week's loss at Colorado Rapids. Warren Barton talks to Mike Ivaris. I was out there yesterday. I sensed that that there was a lot of accountability, that there was a lot of shared accountability for the loss. It wasn't like, man, that referee sucked. How could he call a penalty kick? That was bullshit. It was, we did some things wrong and we had to face some hard truths about our performance at Colorado. That was the sense that I got being around it a little bit. This was not an open media session. This is something for us that we have access because we're building the show. Mm-hmm. So Warren talked to Mike Ivaris. I didn't get a chance to listen to that, but it looked like it was we're at the quarter pole of 2025 here of the first season. And I did sit down with Jasper Loffelson, which was, he was so fun and so playful. This is the starting right back. He has a great personality. So I think people will enjoy that. And we also speak to the Charlotte FC play-by-play voice. So that's all coming up later tonight. If you're not going to be by a radio or an app at 6:00, you can find it on demand, I think, by tomorrow. I talked to Jasper Loffelson, who's from Germany, John.
Yeah.
And I made a confession. I'll give you a little sneak preview of the interview. I said, I just recently learned that I've been mispronouncing a very, very common German word for almost my entire life. And he looked and he was inquisitive and he's like, okay, go on. And I said, and that word is Adidas.
Did he laugh?
He did. And then I said, I recently learned that Adidas is actually not pronounced Adidas. This is a German company and it is supposed to be pronounced Adidas. And I don't think many people know that.
I didn't know,
including some of the PR people that are around SDFC who looked inquisitive and like they sort of raised an eyebrow, like what? And then we went into the history of that Adidas is actually named after somebody named Adi. It's a combination of two names. Adi is somebody's first name, and Das something or another is the second part. But it's a German company and it's Adidas. So then I said, what other German words do Americans often mispronounce? Which was funny. And then he, started telling us how ridiculous we sound when we talk about kindergarten and like other things.
Because that's a German word.
Yes. He had a list of German words that we've been getting wrong for quite a long time.
I love that. Yeah. I can't wait to hear that. Also, I've listened to your interviews on the Coaches Show. I've heard you and Adrian talk. I've yet to hear an interview with Mike Ivaris that's not like a press conference-y thing. And I want to, because I've become fascinated with him on the sidelines.
Yeah.
Because for a guy who doesn't have a ton of experience as like the head guy, he just seems so comfortable on the sidelines. He's never freaking out. He's never upset. He never gets angry. And he's positive, but he's not positive in like a rah-rah kind of way. He's like, come on, guys, we can do this. And it's not like, come on, we got... And it comes off as so authentic. He comes off like just watching him through the TV screen. I could see why players would respond to him, because it just comes off as it's so authentic and he wants them to succeed. And they see that and they trust him. And he's a really interesting guy for someone who's so early on in his career to be this comfortable.
I think your instincts are spot on here, and of course I get a little bit of access to it. So, and this isn't me just singing for the club. I mean, if I didn't feel this way, I just would avoid it.
Yeah.
But I do think he is really authentic. And I think some of that, because we talk a lot about the mental side of sports, I've done a couple of interviews with him when Warren Barton couldn't make it out there.
Yeah.
And, even some of he is consistent in some of the themes in the way he looks at football and the way he looks at life, which is, being very present. I told you last week when he had the whole team out there in Savasana, and for all of us to see, he's into mindfulness. He's into being present. He's into all of that sort of stuff, which is why I think he has that demeanor when he's there in the coaching box. And, he's true to himself. Like I remember asking about, I think I asked a question about having to have some of his players off on international duty and like what that does to a head coach, right? Because you're not in control now. Like these guys are out there, they're playing for Northern Ireland and they're playing for Panama. And he's like, you just got to let it go, bro. He's like, you just got to let this stuff go. It just is what it is. These guys have an amazing opportunity to go play for their national tems, and you just got to let it go. And it wasn't one of those things that you say because what else are you supposed to say? But he's like, I'll just deal with what I got. And it's like, he's just a guy. All these press conferences, they've only lost twice, right? But there's been a couple of draws and maybe some disappointing draws.
Yeah.
But, he always starts like with positive stuff. He's like, hey, here's the things that we liked, so like it's, and I know like there's a lot of players who think, this guy might be full of shit. But, I don't know that anybody thinks that about Mikey Varas because they think that he's authentically wired this way,
Yeah.
And like everybody's heard the story about Larry Boa when he was the manager of the Padres, and he's this hothead guy, right? And he's this really volatile figure in baseball. And, when he was going to get angry, he'd tell the clubhouse attendant to go into the clubhouse and set up a table full of drinks. And then after the game, when the Padres are getting their ass kicked, he'd go in there just so he could flip the table over. And all the players like, this guy's full of shit,
right.
like this guy's a fucking bullshitter. And, and the thing about a personality, no matter who it is like, do the players feel like this person's authentic? And like, that's where it starts and stops for all these guys. You could be a sweetheart. You could be a stickler, but as long as you're authentic, most of these guys, I think, will believe it because they know that when you're saying something, you're not saying it for reasons other than authenticity. And I think that is Mikey Varas.
Well, and to bring it back to, I think we were talking about earlier, the new head coach of the Grizzlies, whose name I've already forgotten, the play he drew up at the end of that NBA game. If you look at the players, like it was a bad play, but the players are half-heartedly running it. This is the last play of the game to tie it and go to overtime, and so they can make the play. They're half-heartedly running it. You know why? Because they know it's a stupid play, and like the players know if you're good at this or not. And that to me was the players going, I don't know if this guy can really coach like this.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's Bochy, dude, in a nutshell. You know what it is? I mean, everybody's like, oh, Bochy, he's so brilliant with his bullpen decision making. And what it is that the players trust Bochy so much that when he asks Madison Bumgarner to come into a game in relief, Madison Bumgarner trusts that Bochy's putting him in the best position to succeed.
Yeah.
It's not that he's gone over all the data and he's looked at all the matchups. That's part of it. That is part of it, right? You have more data now. You have more analytics. You have all of this information. But when the players look at the manager and the manager goes, I'm asking you to do this, trust me, they have to be able to trust the guy. Otherwise, to your point, it's just not going to work. And you end up with a 5-second violation in a playing game. But when Bochy asks a guy to do something maybe that he hadn't done during the regular season, they're like, we trust this guy, that this guy, it's to go an extra inning, to come in the middle of an inning. That's what coaching and managing is.
Right. But it's easier to do that with rings on your finger than the way that Mikey Varas is doing it right now.
Right. But that first time he was asking guys to do things that they hadn't done, and they trusted him.
And that's, again, it's the authenticity. I'm intrigued that I kind of assumed, because he's such a positive guy and because like part of the authenticity is understanding that like people are human, right? Your expansion team's not going to go undefeated. You're going to lose some games. I expected them to walk away from that game against Colorado. I mean, I was calling the penalty bullshit. You probably called it bullshit too. But we also walked away going like, you played a good game against a good team. Sometimes you lose. And it sounds like that's not what their message was. It sounds like Mikey Varys did not go into the locker room and go like, hey guys, you played a good game. They got a couple bounces. They're a good team. Things happen. It sounds like he was like, hey, we could have played better. We could have won that game.
I think that is it. You know, I think
interesting.
it's not, I think it's a lot of, hey, like there's no shame in getting beaten in sports.
Yeah.
But, you know, we can't be giving these things away. You know, and that comes to a bigger conversation about the style and playing out of the back and all that. But you know, I think that was sort of the tone. By the way, the other thing that Jasper Loffelson claims he can do, since he's a throw-in specialist, he's the guy that throws the ball in.
Can he do the flip thing?
Right side. No, but he does claim that he can throw the ball into the 6-yard box from the touchline. So, you know, I don't know if that's true or not, but he claims he can do it. So
is the touchline? It's not like half
the sideline. Yeah, just the sideline.
Okay.
The out of bounds line where you throw the ball in from. He claims that he can throw that ball, which would be let's see, a yard game. Let's see, a field is 53 yards wide. So that
30
would
yards?
be 47 yards. He claims he can throw the ball 47 yards on a throw in and that he can reach the 6-yard box, which, you know, good for him if he can do it. I'd like to see it. Next time you see him out there, see if you can get his attention, get him to do it. Pull your phone out and tape it. It'll be a Section 1904 exclusive. All right. Well, I'm off to watch some Champions League and some Padres and buy some baggy pants for my trip. So, quickly, before we get out of here, I just want to say I posted a thing on the website yesterday. Anyone who's listening to this, if you are a paid subscriber of Section 1904, first of all, thank you. We love you. Second of all, you should have gotten an email yesterday inviting you to the private podcast feed. And you just pick your podcast player of choice on the page, whether that's Apple, Spotify, Pocket Cast, something else, and it'll walk you through the process of setting it up so that you have access to that. In a few weeks, probably once the calendar turns to May, we're going to be doing like one free episode a week and everything else is going to be on the private podcast. So if you haven't already signed up and you're a paid subscriber, go look for that email. If you are a free subscriber and you want to make sure you get all the episodes going forward and full access to all the blog posts that I'm doing on the website, go ahead and sign up for a paid subscription now. And that email will be automatically sent to you once you are subscribed. And thank you to Alex Pena, speaking of, who did post on Blue Sky yesterday that he received the email. It was really cool listening to the podcast on Spotify. I also want to give a lot of credit to John here, because John's doing a lot of this work trying to figure out how to make these podcasts available on Apple and Spotify. And at first we weren't so sure that was going to be possible. But I think John has figured out a pathway to make that happen. Yep. So that we're trying to make this as easy as possible for everybody who's used to listening to podcasts a certain way, that you can listen and continue to listen a certain way. So I do want to give our great appreciation to John, because I know how hard some of this stuff is. And I would be completely lost and oblivious trying to figure this stuff out. I'm just the, I'm just the I guess I'm just the talent on this sort of stuff. But I mean, there's other stuff. I got my own little podcast set up here that I'm trying to sort through this afternoon. So we can make this a little bit, just bigger and better and more interactive. And like we're just, again, I keep saying this, but we're just scratching the surface. So thank you to Alex and thank you to everybody else who chimed in, who did receive that. And, we're going to keep it going. So we'll do it again.